morning, everyone. How many stayed up for that late game? Everybody? Game 7 tonight. Wow, it's going to be fun. I got a question for you to start out. 99 out of 100 99 out of the 100 largest companies on earth are SAP customers. What percentage do you guys guess are also BTP customers? 5's low, 75's close. He's warm. Anybody else?
40, 80.
All right, who said 75? All right.
All right, we'll get a t-shirt.
Oh, prizes.
I only have medium and extra large. Would you rather have a medium or an extra large? Medium. Yes, we have giveaways. Today's going to be fun. So, BTP is absolutely going to help with you becoming a more agile company. And 70 out of the top 100 largest companies on earth already use it. This is a disclaimer. I know it's kind of fine print, but basically it says I'm going to be talking a little bit about the futures. And as you guys have heard SAP say, we never 100% commit till it actually comes out as a general release. And so we're going to have a little bit of audience participation. Do you guys agree that if you can accurately predict the future, all decisions become easier? By the way, there's the little signs. I got one green. Everybody going green? Absolutely, right? If you can predict the future, things get a lot easier, right? So these are the signs I want you to use for this first section. Everybody got the first one right. Yes, it was a little bit of a softball, but there you go. So let's imagine that everybody in the room is interested in buying some ranch land. And you see this piece of property. It's got a bridge, it's got a running creek, rolling hills. Would you be interested in buying this ranch? Everybody's green. Everybody would be interested in buying this ranch. But what if you actually saw the real sign that was there? Suddenly you see the big picture, right? Suddenly you realize that this may not be the right place to purchase a ranch. And so let's all pull out our crystal ball today and answer a few questions about the future. The question that I want to answer is this one. What will enterprise systems look like just 7 years from now? That's not that far out. I think all of us collectively together can figure this out. So statement number one. I had to make them statements so you guys could say yes or no, right? Business cycles and processes will be much faster in 2030 than they are today. We see a lot of green. Yes, absolutely. We all believe that everything's going to keep moving faster and faster, and FedEx isn't going to be as fast as it used to be. Number two, enterprise applications will be more diverse, more heterogeneous in 2030 than they are today. Does everybody agree? Yeah, absolutely. We got a lot of green on that one. No doubt about it. There's a continuing growth of solutions, and we're trying to cobble those together. So here's an interesting one. Large corporations will be 100% in the cloud by 2030. Do you guys agree? Mostly red. Mostly red. All right, so let me change that one to 75%. Do you guys go with 75%? Can I hear 75%? Going once, going twice? Yes. Most companies believe that they're going to be about 75% in the cloud, but there's still going to be some on-premises stuff in the landscape. Customers will expect everything in real time. Do you agree? Come on. Oh, really? One person in the room thinks customers aren't going to expect everything in real time. Yeah, all right. What about your decision makers in your headquarters? Are they going to expect all their insights in real time as well? The expectation's there. The customers want it real time. I mean, Amazon has trained us. When something delivers to my house, I get a picture. I'm sitting in one room over, and I know it's on my front doorstep, right? But decision makers are going to want that too. And how do we get there? It's going to be a tricky problem. Artificial intelligence will fix it all, making all the systems integrate. Wow, red went up really, really fast. Okay, so let me detune that statement a little bit. Most repetitive work, or at least a lot of repetitive work, is going to be automated. A lot of green, no doubt about that. Market share changes. they'll be faster in 2030 than they are today. Do you agree? Yeah, competition is getting tougher all the time. And COVID-19 is the last black swan we'll ever see. A lot of disagreement. There's always something coming that we don't anticipate. So, final question, I believe. No, it isn't. Many companies will be 100% reliant on their IT to operate. Do you agree? Disagreement there. It's kind of a mixed crowd. Most companies that I've worked with, yeah, the minute something goes down, I just had this moment leaving Houston, by the way. I was on an American Airlines flight. We had a plane, we had a crew, we had passengers. Somebody in Dallas pressed delete on the flight. They could not board us, even though we had a plane, we had everything. Technology killed that flight. So I don't know, it depends on your business. So will IT challenges be more complicated than they are today when everybody's relying on the technology so much? I think the answer is yes. And so I think we've defined the future 7 years from now, at least with a 90% probability. It's going to look like a network of applications. It's no longer going to be the solar system center of the world where ECC is. Now it's going to be a very broad level of applications. There's going to be a data fabric that ties it all together, right? The world is going to be, all these things that we just answered are answered by this kind of networked world, right? More diverse landscapes, real-time customers, multiple clouds and hybrid, greater automation, an IT mission that is more complicated, acute competition, and last but not least, the business and the tech are probably going to be inseparable, except for the one gentleman over here that said that's not going to happen in his business. So that's the future. That is exactly where we're all headed, and we're going to get there probably in about 7 years. So let's talk about BTP for a second from SAP. It's not the oldest, most established companies that survive and thrive. It's the ones that are most adaptable to change. This is my next t-shirt question. Whose quote am I stealing here and rewriting? Anyone? It's worth a t-shirt. Nope. What's that? Nope. Think older. Charles? Darwin. Anybody get Darwin? There's a Darwin. Yeah. We have one gentleman who's very accurate. T-shirt time. Would you rather have an extra large or a medium? Because I'm sold out a large. Medium. By the way, this is Jack. He's on my team. He's out of Dallas. He does more than Vanna White duty, just to let you know. So this is a spoiler alert. BTP was absolutely created for this purpose. How you become more adaptable, how you become more nimble, how do you become more data-driven, how do you become more modular to fulfill this networked approach, right? So there's a problem. Ever since Sammy Hagar was around, none of us want to drive 55, but there's a check engine light, or actually 3 check engine lights that are blazing on the hood of our car, on the dash of our car, right? At the application level, the business is asking for more and more applications, and they're asking for those applications to be consumer grade. We've been trained by the iPhone. The problem, of course, is that IT using standard methods just can't keep up. Gartner predicts that this growth of application demand is 5 times greater than the IT department can deliver using those standard methods. As we mentioned in the lead up here, right? The C-suite is expecting things in real time. They want real-time visibility. And the problem, of course, for us is that there's still some paper in the enterprise. It's really hard to be real-time if you still have paper. Everything's got to become digital. Everything's got to become integrated. Everything's got to work well together. And lastly, the business processes themselves have to become more intelligent and flexible. We all want to become data-driven. We've been working on this for 30 years, and we still haven't gotten there yet. So how do you make these decisions always become data-driven for everybody in the enterprise? And so when you look at all this, it'd be fun. This would be an amazing challenge list. And I know I travel the country, by the way, and I talk to a lot of CTOs, CIOs, CFOs, and this is always on the top 12 list. Right? But in the meantime, we had to fight our way through a pandemic, which broke all the supply chains. We then have a war in Ukraine, which is messing with energy prices and grain prices and everything else that's going on. We've got tensions in China, and it's really over chips. I mean, that's the single biggest problem we have. Everything we have right now is powered by chips. The Fed is raising the cost of capital. It's not just the Fed, it's the Bank of England, it's everybody else as well. And now all of a sudden we have a conflict going on in the Middle East, and no one wants to see that one get bigger, right? And so a question I'll ask you, this is probably the last moment for my little green signs. Do you guys agree that these are challenges that you're facing as well? A lot of green, absolutely. So, when you look at these, I think they're really symptoms of a deeper problem. Every one of these is a problem associated with complexity. The complexity is what's slowing us down. The complexity is what's causing silos to happen. The complexity is what's preventing data-driven intelligence, because you have to see your data across the entire process. And so, you got to realize that when you're competing for your customers, harmony is what really matters. I actually did a survey of SAP executives that call on the top 75 SAP customers in the country and asked them, does your customer have a one project, a one harmonious approach to the world? And unbelievably, more than half of those top 75 all have a project to become more harmonious. There is no greater example of harmony, I think, than what Steve Jobs was able to kick off and create at Apple. When I play a song on my watch, it shows up on my phone, it shows up on my desktop, it all works well together, it's amazing. But way too often it's not the case. I mean, I bought a hot water heater from Home Depot, and I can tell you it's not exactly a harmonious process to get your hot water heater through your city approvals, through the delivery, through the installation. Yeah, that was interesting. It's easy to forget that just 20 years ago, there was a titanic battle underway for the music business. It was Apple versus Sony. Only a few years later, Howard Stringer stood on stage at Sapphire. I don't know if any of you guys were at the Sapphire, but it was an amazing revelation that he said. He said, look, we had all the connections to the music industry. We had the channel, we had all the content, we had the best of breed device in the Walkman, and we lost to a competitor that had none of these. And you might say, oh, well, Apple's bigger. No, Apple wasn't bigger at the time. Apple was $10 billion while Sony was $40 billion. They created a platform to get that done. It's an amazing thing. Now, what's happened, you can see, since then, these are the stock prices, by the way. The yellow line is Sony, the white line is Apple. Apple's diverged just a little bit. And by the way, Sony basically kept up with the S&P 500. Had I put my 401k in Apple back then, I wouldn't be here today. I'd be on the beach. But that's a whole different topic, right? So, how did we get here is a really good question to ask, and I think it's on all of us. Both the vendor side, the customer side, the integrator side. We solved one little problem at a time. The truck drivers wanted a new app. They would go out and buy that app, or they would build that app. They'd throw it over the wall to IT and say, hey, IT, make this work with the rest of the stuff. And it happened over and over and over again. And all of a sudden, the average Fortune 500 company has 484 apps running the business. And you might think SaaS will save you, but no. I know this is small to read, but basically SaaS is growing like a weed, and no one's discontinuing their on-premises apps as fast as they're adding SaaS apps. SaaS has now hit over 200. So you got 484 on-premises apps plus 200 SaaS apps. It's a complicated nightmare. And so when I ask this question, much more in a one-on-one setting, but are any of the vendors that are calling on you helping you simplify? And the answer is a resounding no. This is Matt Turk's chart on just the vendors that are competing for your business in data and AI. It's amazing. Everybody's trying to sell you another Band-Aid to put that Band-Aid on your enterprise systems, and it just becomes more and more complicated. And even if I narrow that down to the top 25, it's still a huge integration nightmare. And you might think that's a static list, but no, this is how it's been growing. This is the last 10 years. We went from a couple of hundred to 1,500 in 10 years, all offering solutions in data and AI. And so what is BTP in a nutshell comes down to this. Most companies that have been around longer than Uber have systems that have become rigid and complex. SAP can help because we overcame this problem ourselves. It led us to take our best engineering and our best practices and create the Business Technology Platform with a very important goal of simplifying systems so that you can become more adaptable, you can innovate, you can become more resilient, you can become faster. We had to do it. We went shopping. We bought SuccessFactors. We bought Ariba. We bought Qualtrics. We sold Qualtrics. All this, oops. All this stuff had to work together. That's why we created BTP. We created it for ourselves first. And then Hasso, in a moment of total clarity, he probably had a lot of coffee. He decided, why don't we offer this to our customers as well? Because if our customers develop in an open, modular way, and we do too, we can go into the future together. So, the goals never changed along the way though, right? Harmony and nimble resilience continues to be the goal. Complexity is absolutely this big underlying problem. It's, we've said this phrase 100 times. It's hard to innovate when you're spending 80% of your budget just keeping the lights on. And if you do mergers, it's not 1 + 1. It's an exponential problem. It's really hard to make those different landscapes work well together, even if they have quite a few SAP components in them. Our mission's never changed, but the technology is changing. Our mission has always been that the whole's got to be greater than the sum of the parts. Modularity, luckily for everyone, has become good enough that it can absolutely solve this problem. But we're all starting with a chart that looks like this. There's no doubt about it. It's kind of our point A. But when I look at that, what I see in my mind's eye is the insides of a mechanical watch. All those gears are intermeshing, all those levers, everything's got to work well together. And when it does, we can report our numbers to Wall Street on time. But what happens when you want to do an upgrade? Everybody worries. We have to retest everything. We have to be sure we're right, because if we miss reporting our numbers to Wall Street, it's a disaster. So modularity is absolutely key. Kenny, I'm going to pick on you since I saw you walk in with an Apple Watch on. Have you ever worried if you download a new fitness app to your Apple Watch that suddenly core timekeeping is going to stop working? No. There's a secure layer, right? All the innards of the Apple Watch, whether it's messaging or calendar, timekeeping, it's all protected from all the innovation on the outside. This is the exact same architecture that we need to get from point A to point B with our systems today. That's how you become much more adaptable. By the way, I'm using the chameleon. I had no idea. The chameleon came out right after the dinosaurs went away. So adaptability has been a very good thing for a rather small animal. So this is the world's most simplified view of BTP. Everybody in the room has SAP software. You know we've got a lot of SKUs, but it kind of falls into these bundles, right? All the stuff in yellow, lots of SKUs under there. It's all part of BTP. It's our precision engineer platform for this modular approach. It helps you become more modular and helps you go fast. That's really the two major benefits of BTP. And so that modularity itself, by the way, is how you simplify, because now if you create a new module, you can use smart testing software like Tricentis to make sure you're only testing the things that are going to be effective. And so, let's talk about S4 for a second. There's great reasons to go with software as a service in the cloud, right? Things like it's less expensive, you can stay on target, right? It's well tested across, the logic itself is well tested, and the scalability is well tested. You know what your budget's going to be for the next 10 years. You get to have that evolutionary pace that you can keep up with SAP so you don't paint yourself into a corner, right? But S4 comes with a lot of capabilities. Does anybody in the room use every feature in Microsoft Excel? No. Same thing with S4. We didn't write S4 for any specific company in this room. It's got a lot of capability. You're going to use part of it. That's the covered scope. But there's going to be a lot of things that are outside that. You've got a unique landscape to integrate to. You've got differentiating things that you want to do. This is what BTP is for. BTP exists. If you get an 80% fit or a 70% fit with that off-the-shelf software, BTP will help you get a custom fit. That's why it's there. It was intended to always go with S4 hand in hand, kind of like chocolate and peanut butter for Reese's peanut butter cups. And so the other cool part, and yeah, it does kind of look like Reese's by the time I'm done with this chart, BTP also has a lot of the future things that you may want to do, because BTP is being created for everybody. So maybe the oil and gas industry is not ready for this yet, but discrete manufacturing is. We have those capabilities that you can then apply to your world at the time that you're ready to do that. And so full circle, here's where I started. It's not the oldest, most established companies that survive and thrive. It's the ones that are adaptable to change. BTP was invented for this reason, and clean core is absolutely a crucial concept for you to be able to take advantage of the cloud. So Marcus and Tamara, where are you at? So Marcus and Tamara from SmartShift have a session later today to talk about how you identify all those customizations that are slowing you down. If you're not familiar with them, they've got a lot of really brand name customers, like from BMW to P&G to Jabil, I guess is one of the more recent ones. So definitely catch their session. It's going to be great. BTP exists for this reason, right? Implement a modular strategy so your business can adapt and evolve. You may have seen this chart. This is kind of the official SAP chart for this. The point that I'd like to make is that BTP exists for, and we're developing everything else on top of BTP, whether we're talking about ERP or HXM stuff, or procurement, or customer experience. We're trying to optimize your business processes so that you can absolutely run it on any one of the major infrastructure players. If you develop on top of BTP, and we develop on top of BTP, we'll be able to go into the future together. The best way to, I think, to imagine what's happening here, BTP is this middle layer, right? It exists to take all this stuff in the back office, 484 on-premises apps, 200 SaaS apps, and hide that complexity, right, or simplify it. So we're simplifying across those pillars so that you can become more modular, you can go fast, and you can present a cohesive view to your customers, to your partners, to all your associates, right? And at the same time, optimize your business processes. Become a very modular world. Kind of that picture that I'm showing in the back. That's where all this is going, and BTP is enabling that. In the end, 7 years from now, this is what your future is going to look like. A lot more SaaS and a much smaller on-premises base. We all agreed, right? 75% in cloud, 25% not. While you make that transition, BTP will make sure that the stuff on the front end abstracts all that stuff in the back. And so the benefits come down to this: simplify the complexity. That's crucial for all these other symptoms that we're encountering. Help your people with smart automation. Nobody likes beating their head against the wall while they're scanning vendor invoices. Integrate everything together. That's how you get the wholes greater than the sum of the parts. You want to get better data-driven insights, and DataSphere is all about that. And lastly, how do you optimize your business processes while you future-proof your enterprise so you can get to that 2030 point? And so I want to highlight 3 things that are really important that came out this year, because BTP itself continues to evolve as we go forward. The first thing I'm going to I forgot. I've got a t-shirt question in the way. So, Jack, you ready?
Bring it on.
What percentage of C-suite officers believe that their Fortune 500 company is data-driven? Anybody want to guess? So it's a lot lower than 100%. Higher than 20. 25. We're going to give it to 25. It's 29% right now. Extra large or medium? What do you want? Extra large. Here we go. Yeah, so Harvard runs a survey. They've been running it for 10 years. And they ask C-suite officers, is your company data-driven? And we peaked just before COVID at about 36%. And it's been going downhill since then, so it's an amazing problem that we've invested. Most of these companies have CDOs. They spend over $50 million a year on big data alone. And only 29% today think that their company's data-driven. So it's an amazing problem, but by now you guys know I do a few analogies, so let me give you an analogy about DataSphere. So any modern SUV, right? It has all the applications that you need to actually drive this vehicle. You got speed, you got fuel, you got my favorite feature, which is Follow Me Cruise, because my kid goes to college in Lubbock at Texas Tech, and it's a long drive to Texas Tech back and forth all the time. I'm going next week. What an amazing feature. But anyway, all the applications that you need are in the car. But if you can add additional data from the outside, Like, where's the next fuel station? What's the price at that fuel station? That'd be an amazing thing. What's the weather going to be? What are the points of interest that are on the way? You can actually improve the driving experience. The problem is it's not great if it's not well integrated, if it doesn't work with the rest of your applications that are driving your car. That is a key issue because most of us are doing this. We're taking our eyes off the road. We're taking our hands off the wheel. We're trying to figure out the UI as we mess with Waze, and Waze yells at us that there's a car stopped in the next mile. It's not a pretty situation. And by the way, the car is not perfect. I mean, if I'm driving down I-35 and a traffic wreck happens a couple miles ahead, it's not smart enough to realize that I'm already on that road and maybe it ought to give me a warning, right? So you need this incredible integration to make things work well. So that's what DataSphere is trying to do. DataSphere is taking all those applications that are running your business and augmenting it with data from the inside and the outside to create a flawless experience with people working within the business process. The problem is that the same tactics that we've used, and full disclosure, I came out of the data space. What we've tried to do over the last 30 years has not solved this problem. If you think about it, the business process runs a bunch of different applications usually. Those applications shed data in all kinds of different formats. The way we tried to solve that was by transforming the data and smushing it into a data warehouse. Try to normalize the data, try to do all that kind of stuff. It took a lot of IT heavy lifting to get there. And then the next thing you know is that finance wants their own data mart. And so does transportation, and so does manufacturing, and so does everybody else, because they want more flexibility. So they have little shadow IT people that are sucking the data out of the data warehouse into their own data mart. That wasn't flexible enough. Now everybody wants that data on their own personal spreadsheets. And suddenly I'm adding my own data into it, so now I got data all over the enterprise. It's getting kind of messy, right? We're having all kinds of problems, no doubt about it. Poor governance, all that stuff. Hopefully that's not a sign that I've talked too long. So then the cloud comes along. And it seems like, oh, we're going to be saved. Let's put everything in the cloud. Nope, that didn't save us, right? You move the data into the cloud. The cloud's not flexible enough. Now you got all kinds of specialized clouds that are all involved as well, right? And ultimately, you have all kinds of lineage problems. There's huge latency issues now that you've moved everything far, far away from the business process. Ultimately, that's the issue. Data analysis is in a land far, far away from the stuff that's running our business. And so combining the data is crucially important. Yet way too often we get kind of seduced by the fact that an application has some analytics within it. So in my little example here, you've got manufacturing, sales, and supply chain. And if you have those applications, they'll come with some analytics. You'll know the cost of building your widget, or you'll know how much you sold it for to whom. If you have the transportation data, you might know how long the widget was in transit. But when you combine the data from these three different areas, suddenly magical things can happen. You get a question like this one, answered. Which customers delivered the best margin or the worst margin in the Northeast last year? I can manage my business from this one question. If I add the transportation data, I might know that I can compete better for the business at Big Corp, because I have an efficient way of transferring my goods to Big Corp, right? And if I'm in the C-suite, I might decide where I'm going to invest my capital. Combining the data is crucially important. So I think this is where this entire train of data-driven has fallen down. Data-driven didn't become part of the process. If you think about any process in your business, right, there's always a beginning, it goes through multiple departments, and there's a result at the end of the process, right? And there's decisions that have to happen along the way. There's human decisions, there's automated decisions, there's other human decisions, and if your data doesn't work across these departments, you don't get the insights that you need at every step of the way to make that decision simple. So this is exactly what DataSphere is trying to accomplish. The whole goal is to simplify your landscape, to create this data fabric of both SAP and non-SAP data so that it all works well together and it becomes part of the process. We're working with Google. I saw an individual from Google here this morning. I lost you, but you're here somewhere. But we're also working with 4 other partners. Calibra's involved. Are there a lot of Calibra already users in the audience, by the way? Calibra's a data catalog, metadata that tells you where all the data is. We're working with Confluence so you can stream the data in and out of the platform. We're working with Databricks to address your data lakes and how that's all going to work together. And then we're working with Data Robot to make the ML around the data easy to do. The entire goal is to make it easy. We're trying to make data a lot easier than it's been, with an entire goal of keeping that data as part of your business process. A second area that I'd like to highlight is making those messages better for integration. You know, when you're trying to accomplish a fabric like this, things have to talk in basically in real time. So we have Advanced Enterprise Mesh. If you haven't heard about Advanced Enterprise Mesh, I would suggest contacting your SAP account executive and asking for an hour meeting, because this stuff's revolutionary. What it's basically doing is setting up a cell phone network between all your locations. It can be in BTP, it can be in S4, it can be in ECC, it can be on-premise, it can be in the cloud, it can be in anybody's cloud, and it all works together. You no longer have 35 integrations from point A to point B. You now have one cell network where you put the message on at one end and it comes out at the other a millisecond later. It's pretty amazing. It will work for a great number of use cases, and sometimes you may not transport the entire message, if it's large, but the listener will say, hey, I want that, so they'll go with an API and get the information. This is absolutely the future. There's no doubt about it. There's a demo that they do where they go from scratch to broadcasting a message from South America to North America to Australia or whatever, and the entire coding effort takes 10 minutes. It's an entirely different world. So let me ask you a quick question for a t-shirt. ASUG did a BTP survey. What percentage of ASUG customers believe that integration is BTP's most important pillar? 100%. I have the 100% dude in the back. 70's in. Who got it?
All right.
Medium?
Excellent.
Okay, I won't have to ask that question again. I'm out of mediums. So yeah, 70% believe that this is absolutely the most important capability. The last thing I'd like to talk about is a little bit about AI, because in this year, what's the talk without a little bit of AI, right? The one thing I want you to remember is SAP is focused on business AI. We want to accomplish business results, whether it's moving the inventory better or it's identifying the customer better. But we're very much not about the science experiment. We're all about making your business run efficiently and effectively. It's not our first rodeo, and I'm in Houston. That's kind of fun. It's a good rodeo here. We've been working on, our first application in AI was 1995 with APO. We then worked with our partner SmartOps. We eventually bought them. Oops, sorry, I skipped a step. That's also, not much later, we came out with our first platform, which was NetWeaver. We then worked with SmartOps. We wound up purchasing them to increase our capabilities in that arena. We then came out with HANA, and HANA included predictive libraries built into it, but it kind of required data science folks to work with it. It wasn't easy. And so we then went on a huge trail of making it easier. We moved NetWeaver to the cloud, so call that Platform 2.0. We then bought KXEN with the whole idea to make it easier to use ML. We then embedded it in SAC. By the way, I can't see my own charts, so I'm hoping I'm kind of keeping up here. But we embedded it with SAC to make machine learning easy. You can click on that Smart Insights, if you're familiar with SAC, and it comes back with, oh, this is what the data says. So you don't have to ask the right question. The data will give you the answer, right? We then introduced what really is Platform 3.0, Business Technology Platform. We ultimately then worked on data intelligence. This was data streaming, data transferring, all that data transformation, because we found out that way too many people in data science spent way too much energy massaging the data, not actually doing analysis. It was all about acquiring the data. We then repackaged everything into AI core services with the entire goal of let's just make it easier. Then DataSphere comes along because you find out that AI is driven by good data. If you have bad data, it's not going to be good AI. It doesn't work that way, right? And now, really soon, is going to be the general release of Just Ask, which makes using those analytics a lot easier. The entire goal is to create business value from AI. And that's, I think, what you're going to hear from SAP all along. So the part that people don't realize is it's not just one AI. It's not one large language model that solves world hunger. Things have to work well together to make them effortless. We are working with Google on the back end to make sure that all that works, but we're also investing. I don't know if you saw the news, but we spent $1 billion over the summer in these 3 companies because we're going to be building our own foundational model. So those SAP Smarts will be added to the general knowledge of LLM models. So I'm going to show you a 1-minute demo of Just Ask. I think there's going to be a better one on TechEd. If you guys join the virtual TechEd, you'll see it. But basically, it looks like this. You're on an SAC screen, and you might ask the system for, what's my total revenue? And when you ask that, the system instantaneously takes your query, figures it out, and gives you a number. And then you're realizing, oh, I don't want total revenue. I want total revenue this year. And so you change the query to year to date, and it immediately changes what it shows you to make sense for the query that you asked. So now you may want to see things by region and by profit. So you type that in, and then from there, you can instantaneously dive in and look at greater detail. Now, what's really cool about this is it does the query, interprets the results, and figures out the best way to show it. So now you may want to see it by product, and it realizes, no, a dot chart is a much better chart to show this data. And then you might want to include the planning component. So now it's like, how am I doing versus my plan? And when you change that, it'll actually show you how your actuals are tracking versus your planning. The whole idea is to make this very transparent to the user. The user just asks natural language questions and gets the right answers. So it's an incredible use of multiple AI components that are all working together. If you think about what we did there, we understood the query, we remembered what we were asking before. We then actually had to figure out the data models because some of that stuff was SAP and some of it was non-SAP and it was being combined. We then actually had to perform the query, we get the result, we have to figure out the best way to display that. All these things working together make it look effortless to the end user. You got to realize that a lot of stuff in AI is a very black box kind of world. So you have to trust the results. You have to make sure I personally think you got to absolutely include SAP at the table every single time because we have all those system of record data. You got to trust the vendor you're working with. You got to make sure it's well integrated with everything else. So, the partner you choose, the data you work with, the process you're part of matters a lot. This is what we already offer today in artificial intelligence. If you attended any of the sessions at Sapphire, you'd see this is what we're offering in the near future. Everything in green, by the way, is now including generative AI. So it's basically helping things work well together. Ultimately, our goal is to include Gen AI with everything that we do. You may have seen the announcements for Joule, but it's going to be our version of Siri, I guess, where you can ask the system a question like, how many vacation days do I have left? And it'll instantaneously respond and figure out all the underlying stuff behind there. All the different LOBs are now including Gen AI as part of their different solutions. And ultimately, all those underlying services are part of BTP. And so, I think this sums it up pretty well. We want to make sure that we're relevant, reliable, responsible in our approach, but it's all about greater effectiveness, greater efficiency, making sure you can do great things with AI and getting to real business results. Don't miss TechEd. It's only 2 weeks away. Free registration. It's in Bangalore this year, but virtual is available to everybody. So absolutely, November 2nd and 3rd, I believe. Clear your schedule. It's going to be fun. By the way, half the entire session is going to be about AI. So if you like the word AI, it's the right place to be. So we recommend putting BTP on your favorite infrastructure because we do different things. You get the best of both worlds. With SAP, we focus on the business. How do you optimize your business process? How do you defeat those departmental silos? How do you make the smarts part of your business process? Our infrastructure friends absolutely solve important problems. How do I add more CPU? How do I add more storage? How do I get more bandwidth? How do I manage all my containers? How do I add another data center? That's exactly what's in their wheelhouse. I still get asked this question though. What's the difference between us and them? Kind of comes down to productivity. We help you become more productive in the business. Best way I can describe this is through an analogy. Yeah, you guys are picking up on my thing here. So, who am I going to pick on? John? All right, John. Let's imagine your boss has a long weekend barbecuing and drinking beer, watching baseball. And he walks in and says, I got this amazing idea. I want you to build this Lego city that covers this entire conference table. We have the city of Seattle coming in here next Monday. We want to impress them on our attention to detail. So, my question to you, you got 5 days to save your job. Real life, by the way. We always have a deadline, right? Would you go down to the Lego store and buy Lego city kits that are made to build skyscrapers and firehouses and everything else? Or would you go to the Lego store and buy this huge bag of Lego blocks and start from scratch?
Yeah, definitely with kids.
Go in kits. That's exactly what SAP sells. We sell kits to help you assemble things quickly that are well worked out, that have blueprints, that have engineering to make sure that you're going to get a successful result by Monday, more or less, right? Our infrastructure friends, sure, I can code anything on AWS. Well, not me personally, but that's a different issue. It's just going to take more time. I'm starting with a blank sheet of paper. I'm starting with lower level components. Our city kits are these things in blue. There's a lot more SKUs, but you get the basic idea, right? I bundle them up. You assemble it with the things in yellow. It runs on your favorite infrastructure. It's got all the integration you need for all the SAP components. Plus, it's got open connectors to all the other usual suspects in the enterprise. So let's say you want to build a portal. You'd start with our portal technology, also called Work Zone. You'd connect it to all your back office systems. You'd include security because you don't want to get hacked. You then might include workflow if that portal creates other transactions in other SAP systems. You want to deliver analytics to the people that are landing on your portal, and maybe they're coming from 10 different countries, so you include translation. You assemble all that with Business Application Studio. The one word to remember, the one thing that makes BTP different than all the other clouds is that we ship content. We ship those city kits. It starts with these things in blue, but there's more. Integration APIs and all the mappings. There's over 2,500 of those on api.sap.com. We also include and release intelligent bots every single month. Full disclosure, mostly for S4, but you get the basic idea there. Analytics Cloud doesn't come blank. You start with dashboards that are built for your industry. We also include blueprints. So let's say you're manufacturing something and you want to then send a text to your customer that says, hey, your thing's shipping right now. All that's worked out for you already. That's how you become a lot more productive. So, last t-shirt moment. Lego has been around for over 100 years. What year did they introduce the City Kit? Been a huge success. Way later. 2001 is pretty close. Who said 2004? It's 2005, but I wasn't going to wait for that one. And we're down to only extra larges.
I'm not sure that meeting with kids.
So this is what all these things look like on our website. And yes, we're trying to consolidate everything to the Business Accelerator Hub. Hard to say. It's going to be a great place to go. Which will be at api.sap.com. But basically, we've got modular integration content, modular build content. We got modular analytics and automation content. The best place to go for an entry point is sap.com/disco, which is the Discovery Center. It's a great link to have. You got to realize that what we're really aiming for is this idea of composability, where I started, right? BTP creates little components that can be used as part of your process. They include all these components so you can hook them all together. The goal is where we're trying to go in the future, this idea of a fabric and composable applications. And so let me give you a couple of examples of using BTP well. My first one is Vestas. If you're not familiar with Vestas, they build more of these electrical generating windmills than anybody else on Earth. They also service more of them than anyone else on Earth. And I get to see more of them than anyone else on Earth because I drive to Lubbock all the time. But they had a problem. They had an unhappy CEO. Every time the CEO went to the IT department, I got this thing I need for the business. The IT department would say, sure, we can get it done. It's only going to take 2 years. Or it's only going to take 3 years. The reason for this is they'd underinvested in their core technology. It was really a rigid situation. And the problem, which I just went too fast, the problem is that they were drowning in paper. If the door blew open of the construction trailer, half the project might be on the floor. It's an expensive problem. If you move one of these huge cranes at a wrong spot, it's a $12,000 mistake. And there were lots and lots of smaller mistakes as well. On the services side, they had a problem too. All their services techs, which is half their business, would go out to Timbuktu. These things aren't in the center of Houston. Go out to Timbuktu to try to fix this thing. He wouldn't have the part. He'd have to take his Panasonic Toughbook with its green screen apps, run back to town, order the part, go out to try to fix the next one. Didn't have the part, run back to town. It's just like Jack working on his house on the weekend. He goes to Home Depot 5 times in a row. Same exact problem, right? And so they jumped on an airplane. They went to Apple in Cupertino. They did design thinking with their field personnel. They flew back home to Denmark. They took pre-built content, all these city kits. They started assembling solutions, and only 6 months later, they went from 100% paper to 100% iOS in construction. They also imploded those 50 Panasonic Toughbook apps for services down to 6 consumer-grade apps. They don't even train the people on the apps. They have KPIs built into the app that say, how do people use it? And it's like a regular consumer-grade thing that you download from the Apple Store. You can click on a windmill. You can figure out what part you need before you go. The benefits were amazing, and they're extremely happy. This whole idea of abstract that legacy core. By the way, they're working on the core now. But now you've kind of separated the 2 projects, so you can do that. So how do you become more data-driven? Well, Porsche likes being efficient. They love being effective. They love using everything on that car as well as they can. They're the same way with their back office. Their CFO wanted people to become more data-driven, but they had incompatible silos. Sound familiar? Yeah, I think it's almost every one of our stories. They used to do things the old-fashioned way. They used to hire young MBAs and make them do spreadsheets. But that's never the right way to do it. Spreadsheets under people's desks aren't great. So they decided to use DataSphere, build the field, and hopefully the people will come. And they absolutely did, because everybody got their own workspace. They could add their own data. They had corporate data that was well vetted, while people could add their own stuff in their workspace to see what the analysis looks like. It was an amazing success. Marcus is actually on YouTube if you want to go Google for him. But he's talked at TechEd last year, I believe, about what an incredible success this project was on becoming more data-driven. My last story is Lockheed. Anyone here from Lockheed? Not lucky. Lockheed has a lot of employees and a lot of moving parts, as you might imagine. Their onboarding was really messed up. They did not know, it takes a long time to onboard, by the way, at Lockheed, and they did not know where anybody was in the process of onboarding. So they were trying to solve that problem. And so they basically decided to create, without coding, they decided to create this front screen where they could access all the other systems that were part of the onboarding process using WorkZone. It was an incredible reception. Everybody loved to use it. They actually not only delivered it quickly, but they absolutely are now looking at using the same basic idea to front end all their other systems in other areas as well. Because user interface actually matters a lot. People use it a lot more. And so I'd like to highlight a couple of BTP specialist partners, because the easiest way to get going with BTP if you're not using it a lot yet is absolutely through a partner. The first one is Sierra, and I saw gentlemen from Sierra are here today, the guys in red. So if you want to talk to a great BTP business partner, talk to the gentleman in red. Basically a lot of oil and gas experience. You see some of their customers. This is the kind of stuff that they build. It's beautiful. It's all those additional innovations around your core systems. This is examples of what big screens look like. They also do great mobility. Great company to work with. They're based here in Houston. Another great company is Inkture. They've got some digital oil field stuff. I did oil, assuming there'd be some oil in the room. I don't know if there are or not. But absolutely have won awards. They've been on stage at Sapphire many, many times. They're a great partner. Here's an example of the things that they create. Here's mobility, big screens. But yeah, absolutely the right way to go. Get a BTP specialist partner to help you get started, and you'll be off and running. And so the future will be real time, it'll be dynamic, it'll be composable, it'll look like the little chart I have behind me. And there's no environment I think that we can learn from better than the real-time environment of the NFL. It's crazy. You're competing in front of the entire nation every single week. And you might think these are just random pictures of the NFL, but no, these are all pictures of my buddy Andy, who worked in my group last year. Andy Malumba played for the Green Bay Packers, and he made an amazing observation that really stuck with me. He said, it's not the team that has the best game plan at the beginning of the year that gets to the Super Bowl. That's just a starting point. You've got to make adjustments from game to game, from series to series, from play to play. It's the team that adapts and adjusts to what's happening on the field that winds up winning the games, that puts together the good season, that gets the good seeding in the playoffs, that winds up getting to the Super Bowl. It's all about adjustments. That is exactly what BTP is for. You can adjust your SAP system to be more flexible, to make it all work well together. And you might think that's truly real time, but it's not. The NHL, they don't have time between plays. They don't have time to run substitutes on and off. They don't get to call the next play. It's a real-time game. Only 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago at the BTP Summit that we had in Philadelphia, Eric Schneider talked. There's some pretty amazing revelations. They use data in a real-time fashion to figure out who's winning face-offs against whom. And then they got to watch the other bench to know when that guy's coming on. John's coming on. We got to send Jack in because Jack beats John on face-offs. So by the way, the NFL provides this data. The NHL provides this data to the team. So everybody's working on the same teams with a different strategy. It's like chess at 150 miles an hour. What an incredible situation. Well, all that is powered by SAP. All that data is in HANA. It's all delivered through SAC. It's all real time. It's the future in a little microcosm called the NHL. It's incredible. By the way, they re-engineered the puck. There's now chips inside every NHL puck. And there's chips on every single jersey. And they know how that Jack's slacking. He's not going up and down the ice fast enough, right? So it's incredible. But they track every single bit. Each one of these games is like, I forget, 50 gigabytes, or it's like a really big number of data that comes off of every single game. But that's what it takes to be competitive in a real-time world. And so, how does this work in an enterprise system? Remember, I showed you the small component of composability. We're creating everything in a modular fashion. When you buy an application from SAP right now, it's really an assembly of 150 different tiny modules. Those modules have modules. It is actually getting very atomic. We're using a unified domain model, to make sure that all the data works well together. We're using event mesh, that cell phone network I was talking about, to make sure all the messaging goes back and forth very quickly, right? We're making sure that every application is written the exact same way. We are then going to apply AI. This is the future statement, right? Until it comes out. But we're going to apply AI so that all of a sudden, if somebody calls you, let's say your returns process is set up in such a way that you have to have an RMA number. And Jack calls in without an RMA because he loses all his information all the time. How does your process adapt to that dynamically to still be able to process his return? The system of the future is absolutely going to do that. It's a crazy little world. So AI is going to be crucial as we move toward this much more automated enterprise. And so why BTP? It's going to help you overcome the complexity. It's going to help you be more nimble. It accelerates your progress while reducing risk. It optimizes your business processes. Companies truly do become more adaptable, and that's what it's going to take to compete in the future. Remember this Reese's peanut butter chart. S4 and BTP go well together like chocolate and peanut butter, okay? And the future is this. This picture is here for a reason. Hasso, back in 2017, 2018, was talking about how do you become an automated ERP. 5 years later, that's absolutely where we're headed. We're headed to where you can do a lot more business with the same number of people. It's an incredible thing, right? So if you go to sapbob.com, that'll go to my LinkedIn. Click on that, and I'll send you a group of links that I'm curating for BTP to help you out. Any questions? Stunned silence. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I have one more. I just don't have a question.
Bob, if you need to talk about the licensing, how the BTP licensing works, can we talk to you or somebody?
Yeah, I'm not in the licensing end of the world, but Jack is much closer to that. So Jack in break would be a great person to talk to. But I'll put it to you this way. I've talked to, I don't know, 100 BTP customers. And the ones that purchased CPEA, which is it's kind of like the Dave & Buster's card. You buy a bunch of credits and then you use them in whatever game you want. Those are the really happy customers with the licensing because the world changes constantly. So if you purchase that, and let's say you thought you were going to use WorkZone at the beginning, but then you changed it and you're going to use SAP Start instead, as an example. You can stop burning your credits on that video game called WorkZone and start using them on Start a day later, and you haven't wasted anything. You've got flexibility. You don't have to run upstairs to the CFO and say, I need more money. Nobody likes that. I don't like that. So the customers that are happy are the ones that are not only are buying the platform for adaptability, but they're actually getting a licensing model that's also very flexible, so they can use any one of the tools that they want. Now, rumor has it that there's going to be a new version of that construct next year. So I don't know the exact details of that, but I don't know if it's going to come out at TechEd or it might come out a couple months later. By the way, Jack, good question gets the t-shirt. All right, well, thank you very much. I think we have a break for 15 minutes right now, or do we? Or more like 10 because I talk too much, but thank you very much.